Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Burke County Board of Commissioners special meeting for Thursday, February the 8th, 2024 at 8:15. Madam Assistant Clerk, Kate, doggone it, that's hard to do. We're going to have to change his name somehow. I will note every commissioner present, along with our finance officer and one of her associates and Mr. Attorney and the manager. So the gang's all here. And welcome all of the other folks among us this morning. Thank you for being here. And we'll call our meeting to order. Ask you to silence your mobile devices. And that's a good time for me to do that. And remind you, if you come to the podium there up front to speak, be sure the red light is on. There's a button on that microphone. Be sure to press it. The red light will come on, and we can get you a good recording on our YouTube channel. Gentlemen, you've had this agenda for several days. I'll entertain a motion at this time for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. All those in favor signify by uplifting the hand. That is all of us, Madam Clerk. I have presentations this morning. First one will come from our internet service providers. We have with us this morning Steve Brewer from Brightspeed, Zach Chiz from Foothills Broadband, Michael Tank and Joe Prater from Spectrum. And I'll take just a moment at this time because I may forget it later. Mr. Tank tells us he's going to be checking out soon, retiring, and want to wish him well, and we appreciate the work that you've done with us, Mike, over the past years. And I suspect in the last 3 or 4 years, you felt like you've done 10 years of work with all the activity that's going on in this arena. But the best wishes for your retirement and the days to come. So at this time, I'm going to ask our manager to maybe introduce things, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm very excited about the opportunity this morning to provide what I think is a comprehensive update of where Burke County is with broadband. It is, I think, a value add to have the 3 primary providers here with us this morning, so the board can hear directly from each of them on who they are, what they're working on, what their vision is for Burke County, the areas in our county that they would see as priorities, and be able to have some interaction and dialogue there. Before jumping in, I would just like to provide a brief overview of where we've been, where we are today, and where I think we have the opportunity to go, because I think Burke County, at the direction of this board, is leading this arena of broadband expansion in rural communities. Commissioner Carswell and I actually got a direct email unsolicited from the state broadband office yesterday, validating that exact point, that this community, this county, this board has been leading and pushing for some time, and those efforts are now delivering results, right? So if I can briefly, I'll walk us through. The first thing that I would say is on your strategic plan under the specific focus area of community advancement, this board did adopt a goal unanimously of pursuing at least 90% of household coverage in Burke County. The technical term for that is BSL, broadband serviceable locations. Another way to think about that is rooftops, so that includes businesses and churches and homes and all those type of things. And you've made substantial progress on that. This has been a priority area of policy for this board, because we know that connectivity now involves every part of our life in every industry. We learned a lot through the pandemic. And this I think is becoming the same as rail and water sewer has been for prior generations. It's becoming a public service piece of infrastructure, and something that's critical, whether it's in commerce or education or healthcare, to be competitive. And that's what that's why I think we're working on this generational infrastructure goal. There's really been no pun intended, a wide spectrum of applications to deal with communication connectivity over time. But I think most folks agree fiber is the answer now. That's what all the grants from the federal government through the state have been aimed at expanding to provide adequate broadband, and really that's the only piece of infrastructure adequate to do so. Again, I talked about the concept of not adapting and losing some competitive advantage in commerce, retail sales, economic development. There are communities that are actively recruiting people to come live there just to work online, as we've talked about some of these less than ideal population trends. I think it's important to really connect the dots that all those things are tied together. The state of North Carolina has taken a leadership role with some of the federal dollars that they've received. One of the ways that they've led the way is through the North Carolina Great Grant process. Burke County, fortunately enough, received 2 great grants. The providers that were partners in that, those were all, the Great Grant process is essentially a competitive application filed by the internet service providers to the State Department Office of Broadband. There's a scoring system, and then that helps, the state grant helps the provider do the expansion. Really, the county's role has been in a support advocacy, demonstrating the need, providing information, and being at the table to represent what community needs are. 97 counties in North Carolina were able to get a great grant. A few counties got more than one. Burke County was one of those, and we got 2. I would point out that current president Carswell of the NCACC was part of the group led by, at the time, Tracy Johnson for the presidential initiative of broadband expansion in North Carolina. So I point that out just to say there's been a lot of momentum and horsepower around this area for some time. I talked about I said 97 counties. There were roughly 125 grants in 93 counties for a great grant that totaled almost $350 million. So significant investment. Here in Burke County, we had 2. Brightspeed was in the eastern part of our county primarily. They got about 25% coverage there, roughly, and Spectrum was more in the north and south part. But between the two, $6.2 million of capital expansion investment that served almost 1,850 new locations. And all of that, I would point out, with no local money. So we've had significant improvement investment. What's next is the CAB program. So that's what we're here today to talk about. And the CAB program is a little bit different because it does provide the opportunity for some local input. It will still be expansion by the internet service provider through the state, but it does give this board the opportunity to evaluate community needs. I'm pleased to report, as of today, there's only 1,294 rooftops or broadband serviceable locations that are unserved or underserved in Burke County. Underserved would mean, or not served would mean, that they don't have access to at least 100 megs of download and 25 megs of upload. So we've made significant progress. The policy goal of 90% is highly accomplishable. We're really close today. Certainly, as we move through the CAB program, I think that's a goal that'll be very, very much accomplished. As of today, we're one of the first 5 counties in North Carolina to be able to implement the CAB program. And after you hear from these providers, and then we show you kind of where we are, we'll be looking today for direction to accept that report and move forward with advancing CAB. As a reminder, we have about $1 million of our ARPA, so the American Recovery Plan, federal grant dollars that specifically are earmarked for CAB, along with a $300,000 state grant. So our contribution is about $1.3 million. To participate in the CAB program, you have to have a local match. That's a program grant requirement. But the state matches that at roughly a 3-to-1 match. So that gives us about a $4 million total commitment to the plan. And when you combine the local and the state grant, which is a significant investment, we think we'll easily surpass 90% of the households. And really, we think we can get over, as we move forward, we think 100% is highly achievable, and for a rural western North Carolina county, we think that is a remarkable feat, and likely something we can accomplish over the next 24 months. So I'll pause there, and if there's no questions to the board, I'll ask Mr. Brewer to come up from Brightspeed. I think he's our first scheduled presenter, and then we can move through with Foothills to follow and then Spectrum. But I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions first, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions at this point? All right, seeing none, carry on.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Steve Brewer. I'm Director of Governmental Affairs for Brightspeed, and I am delighted to be here with you today. I do have a few slides that I'd like to share with you. First of all, been a transition to Brightspeed, so let me give you, if you don't mind, if you would indulge me for a few minutes, I'll give you a brief history lesson. Apollo Global Management, a very large private investment firm, went into negotiations with Lumen a little over a couple of years ago. Lumen was the parent company of CenturyLink. And ultimately, that ended in a transaction where local assets across 20 states were sold to Apollo Global Management, and ultimately, those assets are now being marketed as Brightspeed. March of 2022, Apollo Global Management announced that Brightspeed would be headquartered in Charlotte, North Carolina. So very excited about that. North Carolina is the largest of the 20 states insofar as assets go. To give you some idea of that, the goal when the assets were acquired was to build 800,000 fiber passings in the state of North Carolina. When those assets were acquired, there was about 65,000 fiber passings within that footprint here in North Carolina. So shows you the scope of the level of investment that Apollo Global Management and Brightspeed are looking to make into North Carolina. Well, on October 3rd of 2022, we finally got the keys to the car, if you will. It took a little over a year to go through the regulatory hurdles to close the transaction. And since that time, Brightspeed has, as I just mentioned, Brightspeed is looking to build 800,000 fiber passings. Anything we achieve by way of broadband grants will certainly only serve to grow that number. I'm optimistic that we'll come close to 1 million based upon the state's grant budget and what we've got before us over the next couple of years. Brightspeed's also added 200 call center agents, and on average, we now answer the call, a customer's call, in less than 1 minute. We've also added additional 51 service technicians to the state of North Carolina. With those additional resources, when comparing the service metrics from the days of CenturyLink to what we're experiencing today, we've seen tremendous improvement in the mean time to repair and the mean time to install service. So very happy to announce that. And again, the overarching goal of Brightspeed is to bring as many fiber passings across these assets as possible. And there's a lot of positives that come with that. First off, fiber's not stolen. You would be very surprised at the level of copper theft that you experience in trying to manage a copper network. It's been incredible. But fiber is not stolen. Corning, our primary fiber vendor right next door in Catawba County, they have developed a technology for the installation of fiber that we refer to as plug and play. And it enables us to deploy the network much faster. And if it is not a transport fiber that were to get damaged, it enables us to replace that fiber very, very quickly and get the customer back up and running at really just a very quick turnaround. And then, as Brian mentioned, the additional fiber deployment opportunities by way of broadband grants that are on the horizon. We have CAB, which we're about to go through right now. And then on the heels of that, the state has been allocated $1.5 billion from the federal government's $42 billion plan. And that program should kick off early next year. So, and that program, quite honestly, is designed to get us to the universal coverage. So as your county manager indicated, I feel very confident that we'll be able to get Burke County to universal coverage. So this slide represents our footprint in Burke County. So, we serve, I'll say the eastern portion of the county. And what you have on the screen here are the eligible CAB locations. So within the footprint or the wire centers that we serve, primarily Hildebrand and Valdez, you have approximately 500 locations that are eligible for the grant program. Right now, they're immediately eligible for the CAB program, and if there are any of those locations that remain post-CAB, then the BEAD program would come into play and hopefully serve those locations. 493 is what we're seeing today out of this footprint right here. So if you look at this slide, the lighter blue dots are your CAB eligible location, meaning they don't currently have service today of at least 100 by 20. There are approximately 620 locations that you see on the orange dots there that we are going to serve by April of 2025 through the GREAT grant that we received for the county. And then you'll see in this footprint, there's a very small number, the northern tip of this particular footprint, where my friends from Spectrum will be providing service via an RDOF, which is a different federally funded program. So, the exciting news here, there is certainly a path forward by way of CAB and the GREAT grant program to serve these locations that are underserved. What you're not seeing on this map, though, is, if you'll remember, I said earlier that Brightspeed is looking to bring as many fiber passings as possible. Well, Apollo Global Management committed over $2 billion to that process for Brightspeed to build as many locations as possible. What you're not seeing on this map is the fact that we are actually going to be building close to another 6,000 fiber passings within this footprint for locations that are technically ineligible for any grants, meaning they do have service at some level. If you remember in the past, the GREAT grant had a speed threshold of 25 and 3. Well, that speed threshold for the CAB program has now jumped to 100 by 20. However, in the Hildebrand and Valdez exchanges, we're in the process right now of building out those with fiber. That fiber will initially provide 1 gigabyte of speed in both directions, so 1 gigabyte symmetrical speeds, 1 gig coming into your location, 1 gig going out. Our vendor, Corning, is telling us we should very quickly be able to bump that up to 2 gigabytes, and ultimately it's going to be capable of carrying 8 to 10 gigabyte of speed. So we're really building a future-proof network. And what we build by way of the GREAT grant process, it's the exact same technology that we're using for our private investment. So very quickly, you're going to see over the next, I'll say 12 to 18 months, you're going to see about 6,600 broadband serviceable locations in this area be equipped with the Brightspeed fiber. Any questions?
And I understand GREAT grant CAB. So the BEAD program, all these acronyms are confusing.
Yeah.
So the average person, can you explain what that acronym stands for? And is that the $1.5 billion state funding that is after GREAT grant, after CAB, and then that pot of money comes into play, and that acronym is known as BEAD?
Yes, sir. The state initially received $750 million from ARPA funds for the purpose of broadband deployment. That started out as a $350 million GREAT grant program. And that's essentially where the providers came to a county and the state collectively and said, this is where we can get the biggest bang for the buck. Okay? And that's where my friends from Charter wound up with a grant here. We wound up with a grant here, as illustrated, the orange dots that are on the map. So that was all part of the GREAT grant program. And then the state actually was able to siphon off about $50 million from the CAB program to put towards unfunded GREAT grant applications. They were trying to get as much out the door as they could, so we could go ahead and begin the building process. So yes, now we are we're right on the cusp of CAB. and that stands for Completing Access to Broadband. Any decent piece of legislation must have an acronym that goes with it. It's just how it works. But initially that was planned to be a $400 million. Because of the way the statutes were written, the state was able to move some of those funds to fund unfunded great grant programs. So the state roughly has about another $350 million that it can fund through CAB. On the heels of that, though, the federal government has allocated, the federal government had a budget of just over $42 billion. North Carolina received $1.5 billion of that. So the ARPA money that funded CAB and GRATE has to be encumbered, has to be awarded by end of year 2024. Right on the heels of that, we will go through the BEAD process. The way the statute is currently written, the process used in GRATE and CAB was to work for BEAD. However, the federal government placed some additional requirements or some different requirements on how the money is spent, how it is accounted for, the compliance and whatnot. So you will see, I feel confident, when our North Carolina General Assembly returns to session, April, May timeframe, you will see some tweaks to those programs. And quite frankly, you may see them just simply rolled up into one program to spend the state's $1.5 billion in the BEAD. But as a commitment for a state to receive BEAD funding, there has to be a commitment and a plan to get to universal coverage. And that's universal coverage with speeds of 100 by 20. So obviously when we put fiber in, you're going to, at a minimum, get a gig speed available to you at your location. So that greatly exceeds the federal requirement of 100 by 20, as our symmetrical gig product is basically 940 gig in each direction. So you're significantly exceeding the federal requirement. But so you will see, I think you will see some legislative tweaks coming up April, May timeframe. And that will show how the state ultimately will administer the BEAD funds. But again, the BEAD funds are designed to get us to universal coverage. I think you will see the vast majority of that be by way of fiber. Certainly there are going to be some locations within our state that are so challenging to get to, largely because of geography, that you may see additional technologies, or you will see additional technologies used to reach particularly those hard to reach. But for the most part, I think you're going to see just a huge expansion of fiber across our state. I'm very excited to hear that. Any additional questions?
So you're saying we go 1 gig up, 1 gig down, your prospect is 2 up, 2 down? Is that what you're looking for?
And ultimately,
Ultimately.
our vendor Corning is telling us we'll be able to go higher than that. So we're really putting in a future-proof network, which is
Okay, it's all ground fiber?
well, some of it will be deployed aerial, some of it will be buried.
Okay, plug and play, what would happen to the fiber that would have to be replaced if it's up or down?
Sometimes the fiber gets cut. Unfortunately, there's automobile accidents that take out utility poles. If fiber's on a utility pole, it could become damaged like that. But the exciting thing, if it's not a piece of transport fiber, with this new technology that we're using to deploy, it generally does not require splicing. Splicing is the most time-consuming aspect of repairing fiber. So we have, they call it push lock, is the deployment that Corning has made available to us, and it's, to be quite honest with you, I can do it. I have done it. Now I was in a nice conference room, and I wasn't on a pole or trying to put it underground, but it enables us to deploy faster and to repair faster. And again, another advantage with fiber is a lot of times we can tell a customer has an issue before they can, and hopefully we can resolve it before it becomes an issue. And quite frankly, when we get customers on fiber, you don't tend to hear from them a lot because fiber is not impacted by weather as copper is, as I mentioned earlier. You don't have copper theft issues associated with fiber. So It's truly, it's the way to go, and we're very excited to be bringing that to North Carolina.
We're trying to get to 90%. You're obviously aware of that. So how is the cost going to affect the people in Burke County? What do you think it might be?
You mean the cost for the monthly service?
Yes, sir.
So right now, I think we've got a promotion going on, and it's $79 for 1 gigabyte. So it is very, very, it's.
Is that comparable with
Yes,
others?
sir, absolutely.
For right now.
Other questions for Mr. Brewer?
And Johnny, we often read each other's minds. I was wondering about cost myself, but to follow up on Johnny's question, is there, because people are going to ask us, is there a program for low-income families for affordable
Yes, sir.
high speed? And what does that look like? How much will that cost? And when will that be available?
So right now, the federal government does have a program called ACP, Affordable Connectivity Program. Unfortunately, as we sit today, that program is set to run out of funds in April, I believe. There is a lot of pressure on Congress right now to refund that low-cost program. So all of the providers are very interested in seeing that happen. There's lots of work going on in DC to extend funding to that program. Brightspeed, as we sit today, has seen fit to match that. So the federal government has a $30 subsidy, if you will, for low-income households, and they have a process for vetting the low-income households. For those individuals that are eligible for that federal subsidy, we are matching it. And we actually do have a product that is $60 a month. I want to say, I think it is our 200 gig by 200 gig product, 200 meg by 200 meg product, which is still twice as fast as the federal requirement to meet broadband. So essentially, we could get those low-income households on network for free. It will require some sort of extension of the ACP program. And again, there is a great deal of work going on at the state level to encourage the federal government to extend that program, and then within the federal government. It certainly has bipartisan support that I am aware of, but as you know, things tend to move very, very slowly in DC. And to date, that a longer-term solution has not gotten across the finish line.
Unfortunately, 40% of Burke County is eligible for ACP. That concerns me as we move forward is to get the best product we can at the best cost that we can for the citizens of the county. So, and then I'm concerned about BEAD. I don't know that we know the end product of BEAD yet. I don't think the federal government's actually told us what we can and what we cannot do. Is that true?
Well, right now, what all states are doing is submitting their plan for administering the BEAD program to the federal government, and the federal government has to approve that. So before end of 2024, I do think you'll see a North Carolina plan that has been fully approved by the federal government, and then they will commence the process in early 2024. But all states, well, I can't say for certain that all states have submitted their first round of how they plan to administer the BEAD program, but North Carolina certainly has.
In your current great grant plan down in the eastern end of the county, how far are you along with service for those folks down there?
So we are under contract to deliver that service no later than April of 2025, which we're certainly on pace to do. As I mentioned earlier, we're in the process of building fiber to the prim using our own private investment dollars right now. I mean, much of it will be completed in 2024, and then off of that, you will see those great grant locations built off of that.
Okay, and they're getting a gig up and a gig down?
Yes, they'll be capable of that. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, everything that we're deploying by way of fiber will initially have that speed offering, and then we do anticipate upgrading that in the near future.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time. If you don't have any other questions, I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and look forward to continuing to partner with the county to get us to universal coverage. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brewer. At this time, we'll hear from Zachary Chiz from Foothills Broadband. Zachary.
Good morning, Commissioners, County Manager. Ashley, thank you for putting together the breakfast this morning. My name is Zachary Chiz. I'm with Foothills Broadband, and one second here, we got technical difficulty. Can I control it? I got it. Yeah. Let's start back from the beginning here. So I want to talk through a little bit of why Foothills Broadband started this past year. Just to give you a run through, some of you have heard this story probably multiple times. Johnny, I think you have. Jody and I grew up in this county. Grew up in Valdez, right off exit 107, going to Bergmont and Salem. All those names you guys are all very familiar with. And Jody grew up in Drexel, right in downtown on Main Street. And this county is part of our home. This is where our family lives, just like you. We started this because of her mom and dad living on Flat Gap Mountain up on Lee J Road. And if you've ever been over top of the crest of that hill, there is no internet and cell phone service. It's very difficult to get up there, and we just discussed that. It's kind of a problem for them. And a few years ago, they both got COVID, like many people in the county did, and put a strain on their lives. Some of you know that personally. Jody looked at me and said, "You are an engineer, go fix this." So, being a good husband, we started out on that venture just to start on Flat Gap Mountain. What would it look like to get internet up there on top of the mountain? And it kind of evolved into what Foothills is today. With my previous training and where I come from in my background, my father has been a fiber splicer my entire life. I grew up with a fusion machine in my hands. When I was 6 years old, I knew the color code for fiber before I knew what the reading rainbow was. I'm very grateful for my father training me in that way. Went to civil engineering school at A&T in Greensboro, and then started working at Corning and did 7 years at Corning as an engineer. My last job at Corning was a sales engineer, selling the products that our colleague from Brightspeed was just talking about. So again, I like this industry, I love this industry, and I love my town. So we started down this path because of my mother-in-law and father-in-law, and I want them to have a relationship with their grandchildren. And where we lived previously in Mississippi for my job, FaceTime was impossible unless they came off the mountain. So we started down that venture on Flat Gap Mountain, and we decided and moved forward with building all of Valdez, Drexel, Conley Springs, and Rutherford College with fiber internet, fiber to the home, 12,000 total home passings, and that's what our current project build is right now. That's what we're doing currently. If I can control this, here we go. So just to give you a rundown of what our company makeup is right now, we buy local and we hire local. All of our product comes from Hickory. All of our employees are either from Burke County or Catawba County. So they are all local people that have a vested interest because their families live here. Right now we have over 45 years of industry experience in the office between our construction director, our fiber splicers, our technicians, and myself. So we're trying to make sure that we hire the right people to start a small company, because that's what we are. We're small. We're small and we can do a lot with a little. And as of right now, most of our contract labor, we have 5 contractors in-house that are laying our cable. One of the points you made, we're 95% underground. That way it's protected. Our contractors are from North Carolina. A couple of them are from Roadhiss, Granite Falls, Hickory area. One of them's down in Monroe. So we have hired people local in this area that, again, have a vested interest because they live here. Now, our current business plan, we are going to do truly 100% fiber to the home. So from our CO that is in Valdez, and I'm going to talk about our partnership with the communities here in a second. From our CO out to the house, it is fiber to the home. We are going to be bringing the fiber directly into the house. It's not going to stop outside. There's no transition point. It goes fiber straight in, so that you have the best latency, best upload and download experience, like we've been discussing this morning. We are going to utilize the XGS PON network, so that is the most upgraded technology for passive optical networks that it's available. That's the electronic component that helps get you to that 10 gig speed eventually in the future. So that's what we're going to be using. It's a one-box solution, and I'll talk about those here in a second. So the industry manufacturers that we're using, we are going with as much as possible the best manufacturers that are there. So Nokia Optics, Nokia usually works with tier 1 companies. That's your larger, Brightspeed, Spectrum, larger companies. We have a partnership with them to use their technology, which is fantastic for a small company. We're using Juniper routers and switches, so that's, again, tier 1 material for a small company. And Corning fiber. And the good thing that I have from my relationship at Corning is the products that we're using is the best technology that's out there. It is the push lock technology we just discussed. The part of that is called the Evolve terminal. It is the smallest platform to put fiber into and to plug into. It is very easy to use, like we said. And it is what should be the industry standard moving forward across the country. And it is what needs to be in the ground. That is, from my engineering experience, that is true. Sorry, there we go. So providing fiber internet, our overall goal, and I have a few maps up here to talk through this, our overall goal is to not stop at the towns of Rutherford College, Connolly Springs, Drexel, and Valdez. Our overall goal is to build fiber across Burke County. And I'm going to say just Burke County. That is our goal. This is where I grew up. This is where I live. I want the people that I grew up around to have the same experience that I'm going to have in Valdez. So with that being said, we have 2 different types of packages for home and business. Capable right now, because we have customers that are using it. The smallest package for the home is 100 by 100. Then we go to 1 gig and then 2 gig. I currently have business customers and residential customers in Valdez on a 2 gig package. And they're very excited about it. The best part about the package that they have, the equipment that's in their house is already 10 gig capable. So tomorrow we could push them 10 gig if we needed to. So we started with future proofing so that when we get to that point and it's needed, we can go ahead and make the switch. Our current build area, this is in the Valdez area. So I'm going to walk through it because it's a little hard to see. I noticed that now, sorry. So we're going all the way up to, and I think you guys would know these terms when I say it, we're going all the way north to Roadhiss to the river, south to Lee J. Road, down towards 18, going towards Shelby, so South Mountain area, over towards Eichard, so we're going to stop there at the county line near Eichard, and then we're going to stop before the Morganton city limits on the other side of Drexel. So that is our current build plan, and right now we are on track to have 12,000 home passings built and serviceable with fiber by October 30th of this year. Currently we're doing 12 miles of underground construction a month, and recently in the last few weeks we have received our aerial permit to go over Interstate 40 to get to Lee J. Road. We have REA's permits for going up on top of Flat Gap Mountain, and currently the engineering work has gone really well. So in these areas that are in the downtown areas of Valdez, Drexel, Connolly Springs, Rutherford College, we are going to keep it underground. That's where our permits are going to be. And the partnerships that we have with these towns, we have a blanket underground permit with Valdez, Drexel, and Connolly Springs already in place. So these towns know what we're doing. We give them weekly updates. We talk to their city manager, town managers, and we've tried to partner with them to make sure that they know what we're doing every day moving forward on their streets. One of the things that we also have in place with our partnership with Valdez is our CO building is sitting on a Valdez lot that we are leasing from them. And it's directly across the street from the fire department. Johnny, I believe you've seen it. And best part about that is it's being right next to the fire department. We ran our first fiber over to the bunkhouse for the fire department. And those guys are enjoying 2 gig internet for free as they're waiting for the call. So it's not for official use, it's for those guys to use while they're waiting for, to go save lives. So that is our current build area that we're looking at. And then our expansion project, this is Burke County as a whole, so we are looking at these areas. This is from the FCC map. Those colors are current build areas for either great grants or CAB grants. So this is information everybody can receive off the internet. But just to show you, these are the areas that we've located. So if you see in the blue lines inside of Burke County, those are polygons that we've located that we want to go and start building immediately. That's where the majority of your customers are, or your constituents are, that don't have fiber to the home or adequate internet. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit on that. Potential cab areas, so Flat Gap Mountain. This is a potential area where my father-in-law and mother-in-law live. I'm going to say right now we already have a build plan, and we will have this completed by the end of March. So it can be removed off the list, quite honestly, because we're going to be finishing that. Southeast Burke County, that is another area. So going south down towards Highway 18, we are trying to get down that far, past Lee J. Road and Mineral Springs Mountain Road. So that is another area that is cab potential area. Jonas Ridge, I think we all know that one very well. That is another area that on the mountain that is potential. We actually have already started engineering and designing that. In the case that we have the opportunity to partner with you on that, we are trying to do our homework. So a couple of things that we are working on right now in that, I already have our transport fiber to get to the top of the mountain to help with build cost. We already know where we're going to place our CO building if we have to place one up there on top of the mountain. We already have the engineering in progress. We'll have engineering completed in the next 3 weeks for this. And we already have the contractors lined up to be able to go up there and do it. So it's pretty much you give me a green button and we will go and build it. Another area, this is right outside of Brindletown, if you guys know where that's at. So outside the Morganton city limits. This is another area that needs to be built, and it's kind of the convergence between REA and Duke Energy. So that's another area that we have identified. I think that's it. So just so you guys know where we are, Jody and I, we really are doing this because we love this community. My family lives here, and they are the people that you guys serve as well. It makes it easier for us to partner on that because we have the same love for this community, and I think it makes it a good partnership to go forward with. We will be continuing to build fiber. This is not us building our fiber in these towns is not contingent on the CAP funding. We are doing it with it or without it. We would love to be able to partner with you on it. And helping Burke County save money, Johnny, to your point, we want to help the county save money, and that's helping get to a streaming service. Getting to using broadband the way that it needs to be and the technology that's been available and should be available to this county. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Sometimes I still think printing presses and books are technology. Can you explain to me what you mean when you say CO?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry about that. So CO is a term, that's your central office. So that's ground zero for where our fiber generates from. So the building that we have in Valdez is a 145-mile-an-hour windproof building. We've got cameras all the way around it. There's a fence around it, and you are more than welcome. It's right next to the cash points in downtown. You're more than welcome to go drive by and take a look at it. And inside of this building is where all of our electronics are that push the internet out on the fiber to the house. It has to be a secure building, so that's why it's the way it is. But when you go inside, just because I am a fiber guy, not the electronics person, there's a lot of blinky lights inside of it. So it's really cool to see when you go inside. It's kind of loud because you have air conditioning, and the switches are loud because they're pushing out a lot of power. But I welcome you coming to see it if you would like to see it someday.
Questions for Zachary?
Let's talk about affordability. What your customers are going to be seeing as far, there's other presenters here today, so how are you going to compete with that?
Yeah, so our packages, I don't have a problem talking about our packages because that's public knowledge. Our 100 meg internet, the symmetrical 100 megabits per second, starts at $65 a month. Everything with the taxes are included in that. So when you see your bill, it says $65.00. There's nothing added onto it. There is no contract. And 5 years from now, our package will still say $65 a month. And I think we've all seen from the technologies that we've all had in our own homes, for some reason, our prices go up without knowledge. That's one of my concerns, and what we've heard from many people in Valdez, that the concern is, well, in a year, is my price going to go up? Nope, $65 a month for that. Our 1 gig package is $95 a month. What that does get you, though, is the box and everything inside of the house. You don't have to pay for a lease for the box. You don't have to pay a lease for the equipment that comes in there. And 5 years from now, it will stay the same at $95 a month. And to that point, though, with the funding from federal government, if Congress can get through the ACP funds for the next few years again, that's something that will be available to the constituents here.
How you gonna get fiber to Jones Ridge?
Say that again?
How are you going to get fiber to Jones Ridge?
So the way that we are going to do it, we actually drove this out a couple weeks ago. Getting up 181 is kind of tough. The poles going up through there are, before it transitions to Mountain Electric Cooperative, are not the best in condition. So what we've decided is to use a transport fiber from one of our partners that has already got fiber up there to get back to our CO. So it allows us to use leased fiber to build to a separate CO on top of the mountain that will provide fiber internet.
They're coming from Avery County.
I can't disclose that. I apologize. We can talk in a closed session about that.
So if you get there, the cost, you're gonna be able to keep the cost the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
We have the cost modeling worked out to where it will be the same price for everybody across Burke County. Any more questions?
So how do you get the service to your CO? Where does it, explain that to us. Some of us
Yeah,
are
sure.
not quite
So,
familiar.
so there is a, we call it an internet hotel or exchange, where everybody's internet generates from, and ours comes from Charlotte, North Carolina. That is the literal ground zero where everybody pumps out internet. Where we're at there, Verizon has space there. I believe most of the other tier ones have space there. We have a rack space. It's called Digital Realty. We have a shelf and rack space in Digital Realty that we lease from them, that our fiber starts there, runs up 321 to our CO in Valdez, and powers our internet from Valdez to Burke County. So that's how it gets to Valdez, is from the internet hotel in Charlotte.
And you can do all of your work with 5 people.
No, not right now. So right now, yeah, that's a good point. So we just hired 2 more people. We're up to 7 now. We have a construction director who is leading our construction effort. He has a construction project manager under him that we'd hired. Our construction project manager is like me. He came from Corning. So he has industry experience and fiber experience. He actually used to be the guy that tested all the products before they were released. So he knows the products very well. We are hiring 3 more technicians to help with installs. So we'll have 5 total technicians in the field. We are hiring a CSR. We extended an offer this past week to be in the office. And the most of it will be contract labor for our construction efforts. So by the end of the year, we will have 15 people total. But with fiber internet, you can do a lot with a little. 15 people is enough to run the company.
For now.
Mr. Chairman, I guess one of the things I'm having a hard time getting my mind around is the infrastructure piece of this. Is, like, for example, going out Highway 18 towards George Hildebrand.
Yes, sir.
With the potential of competition for providing service, does that mean that there would be 3 fiber lines running, or is there agreements that are made company to use some of those same resources?
Nope. So we are completely independent on our fiber. We own and operate our fiber and the pipe that it goes in. So as of right now, there is no agreement between the other providers that are going to be in the county. But for us, as we run our fiber and expand it out from Valdez, our limit is where do we want to stop. So we're going to continue to run it to the edge of the county and past the homes that are there. If they take our service, great, but it'll be available to them. My biggest concern is taking care of our families that are here. And I know it's not going to be for everybody, but it'll be available to them at least.
I was just curious how that worked. I know you guys, anything overhead probably have to work out agreements with power companies, use the poles,
We do.
that kind of
So we have agreement with the NCDOT, with Duke Energy, with REA. I'm going to start working on Mountain Electric up in Jonas Ridge. We have agreements with the towns, and eventually I would like to start working on the same thing across the rest of the county. But as of right now, we have the agreements in place to build what we need to, outside of Morganton city limits at least.
I know in the late 80s, maybe, I don't remember the timeline exactly, but it seems like I remember hearing something about undeployed assets being put in as other projects are completed. Is there a percentage of that in the county? In other words, do we have fiber in the ground already or overhead that's not deployed?
Yes. For us, yes, right now. We are, the way that we do our construction, we put the pipe in the ground first, and then we run the fiber into it. Now, the next step that we have, because there's always going to be splicing, we have to splice in the push lock or the evolved terminals that we have. That's the plug and play technology that allows you to get right outside the house. So, for example, if somebody cuts their drop in their yard, we can go out there and plug it in right away. It is the best available out there. But with the fiber that we're laying, we put the pipe in first. If we have to use pole permits, which we have to go over across Interstate 40, we hang the fiber, then we have to splice it in. We test it to make sure that it has light on it, active light, and then we deploy it. And when we deploy it, we use our back office system that we have. It's a partnership we have with a company called Fibersmith Vision. We can send a automated email to customers that have already pre-signed up that it'll say, hey, it's time for you to schedule your install. Go to this calendar and schedule, and they can put their name on the install calendar. And if they don't ever want to talk to us on the phone, they don't have to. Or they can make a phone call to our CSR and schedule it. So that's how we have it deployed right now. As of right now, though, we have right at 17 miles built.
Let me piggyback on that. How does fiber, we're going down Highway 18 like Randy says, where is the fiber? Is it right off the side of the highway? Is it close to a telephone pole, or how?
So what we build, so it has to be off the highway. There is an easement, and the DOT regulates what easement they have because the DOT owns Highway 18, right? So they tell us the right-of-way or from edge of pavement over how far off we need to be. Most of the time, if you see a power pole, that's in the easement space. For us, we build it right next to the power pole because it allows us to take our drops, if we need to, take the drop to the house straight up the pole and over if we can't build it underground. So, for example, some of the homes that are on Lee J Road, which is an REA build, some of the homes up there, there is no physical way to run a drop through the ground because it's rock. Okay, we wouldn't be able to put it underground. It would cost us a lot of money to do that. But working with REA on this, if we have underground up there, which we're going to have some underground on Lee J Road, we put the fiber right next to the pole. We can run it up the pole and run it to the house. That way we can still serve that customer.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to come back to Steve saying, you've got right-of-way easements, right, correct, with your product? Okay. And he indicated yes.
Yeah, we all have to. It's part of the job. Any questions?
Other questions, Zach? All right.
Thank you guys for your time, and look forward to helping serve this community that we all live in and have family in. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And as Commissioner Smith says, there's a lot of liberty in this stuff. So if you don't understand what's going on, ask questions. You may hear a lot more gibberish, but we'll get there. Now we'll hear from Mr. Tank and Joe Bradley. Guys, come on up and tell us what you got.
Good morning. I am Mike Tank with Charter Communications, and as some of you already know, and Commissioner Britton's already alluded to, I am retiring next month. And so I've enjoyed working with the county here for many, many years at this point in time, trying to bring broadband to unserved areas. And I think we're making some good progress. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but we're not quite there yet. But really, I'm here today to introduce my colleague, Joe Prater. When I leave next month, the company is going to be refilling my position. So there will be a new person coming up and being your local government affairs person. What Joe does right now, he is overseeing our grants for North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. So he's intimately familiar with how the grant process works. He knows what's going on here in Burke County. We've met with the county manager on prior occasion. So I'm going to turn it over to him at this point in time. Well, I should say, he's going to be kind of backfilling for me until the new position gets filled in. So he's busy right now. He's going to be a little busier for the next month or two until they get that backfilled. But he's going to share with you some information about what we've done so far with RDOF, with GREAT, and then what we can work out and how we would like to work with you guys on CAP. Joe?
Always a tough act to follow with Mr. Mike Tank. 45 years. My shoes just got a little bit bigger standing here. So, Thanks for having us. We're real excited about what we've got going on. We want to talk about the future here in Burke County. We've got a large presence, so I'm going to talk about where we are, what we're doing, and where we'd like to go. So starting off with our impact here in the county, we pass about a little over almost 35,000 structures as of today. You'll hear people refer to homes passed. That means our network passes that home. We can service it. Doesn't necessarily mean they subscribe to our service, but we pass the house. So we've got 35 structures as of today, 22,000 existing customer relationships. And here's kind of a breakdown of those. We have a myriad of products that we offer. Obviously, our most popular is our internet service with over 21,000 current internet subscribers. We've got 10,000 that are taking our video, a little over 7,000 that has our home phone voice services, and then 9,000 in our most fastest growing service we offer, which is our Spectrum mobile service, the fastest growing mobile service in the country. And what I'm going to talk about here in a little bit are the 2,000 plus additional locations that we're currently building to, both through our federal commitment through the RDOF program and of course the North Carolina Great Grant. So to talk through those existing partnerships, you may be familiar with the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. This was an auction we participated back in the 2019, 2020, right before COVID. Across North Carolina, we're building 128,000 plus completely unserved locations through that initiative. Here in Burke County alone, we're building to over 700. I'm going to talk through on a map in a little bit. But what's important to note is when we went through the auction with the federal government, these were census blocks that were completely unserved. Not a single rooftop had access to 25.3. There were partially served census blocks that were ineligible, which means if one person in a census block had access to 25.3, it was considered served at the time. This is very old, antiquated federal data. But the point being here, we got about $1.7 million from the feds to build this. We are on track to complete it in the first half of next year. We hope to complete it sooner than that, but definitely by Q2. In the Great Grant, which we won 1,119 specific locations through that program, which is about 110 miles of fiber. We were awarded, as you see up there, about $3.8 million from DIT with another $1.6 million investment from Charter. We are on track to finish that next year as well. And I'm going to talk about how we're leveraging both our existing network and these ongoing builds for the future of expansion here in Burke County. So here's a look at where we are in Burke County. The gray here is Charter's existing network. The dark purple there means that it has gig access. I think we're all familiar with in Morganton, Compass there is providing gig service. So that's what that dark purple is there. This is all based on FCC data. The dark blue areas are what we're building to RDOF. That's what we're going to be finishing here by first half of next year. That's our commitment to the federal government. No cost to the state or to Burke County on that. That's all between us and the FCC. The kind of lighter pink areas are areas that are considered unserved. And so and all this is also from the state's map. They use the hexagons. I think you've seen a lot of their mapping that become very advanced in that. But what the dots are there are based on the state's eligible location data are the one that we have identified that we would like to go after through this initiative. Keep in mind that data is currently in the protest period. There's 2 protest periods for the state's map. We just completed the first, which is where ISPs and counties can make challenges to the map across the entire state. I think the state is in the process of sending that finalized county-specific data to Burke County, where you will review, identify priorities. Then there will be a second final challenge at the county level prior to the posting of an RFP. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question as we're going through here. RDOF.
Yes, sir.
You know, there was some frustrations with that program because you see this has a 6-year timeline. And so when these new opportunities that came to fruition, we're getting phone calls saying, we're going to participate, CAP, great, whatever it may be. But if you were tied up in a area that was covered with an ISP that has the rights through RDOF, they were just out of luck. And so, in other words, there wasn't a 2-year, there was no foreseeable future for them to get the RDOF in their mind, because you're talking about a 6-year timeline. And so, I'm sure you've heard that. So specifically, because I'm going to get calls on this, we all are. So when you say you're going to be completing your RDOF coverage by next year, That's obviously a lot earlier than 2027, I think it was, you had to do it. So, and so as you're going through that, that is, people, because people, this is a nebulous idea to them saying, you know, we're just out of luck.
Right.
And so that has been a frustrating thing with that whole program. So it will be done next year.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
That's what our
just want
construction
clarity
crews are
on that.
reporting. Yep.
Thank you.
And RDOF, by the way, is a commitment to 100% of the homes within those census block groups too. It's a full coverage of those CBGs.
As you know, Joe, I am not a proponent of RDOF, and I've made no bones about it.
Yes, sir.
Not really fond of the program. Michael already, me and Michael's done a dance on the table a lot of times about RDOF. How many people have signed up for RDOF in the Jones Ridge and South Mountain areas?
They haven't been completed yet. Those are the ones that are supposed to be done by Q2 or Q3 of next year.
You say you're going to be done by the first part of next year, right?
Yes, sir.
You know, what do you mean by done then?
Activated. Customers will have active service to their homes in those areas by the end of the first half of next year.
So who's signed up?
It's not activated yet. They don't have access to the actual service yet. I'm saying the construction will be completed, network will be activated.
Let
by
me
the first
rephrase
half.
the question. How many people do we think will be signing up in those two areas?
But that I don't know.
We don't have a clue.
I'm sorry?
We don't have a clue. We don't have a guess of who might sign up.
We don't.
Okay.
No, sir.
Joe, can I correct that one?
Sure.
What we have seen is that
You need to come up here so we can get you on the TV here.
What we've seen is that a normal penetration rate might be in the 60 to 70% of the
Okay.
people. What we've seen though in these newer areas like this are generally higher than that. So we would think that we would get a penetration rate or take rate of at least that amount and then possibly even higher than the 60, 70%.
Okay, let me ask you this. How have you marketed RDOF in those areas?
What our game plan is that once those areas become activated, and Joe will probably talk a little bit about the construction process, but once they become activated, then we will have a direct sales team that will go out and go door to door and contact those folks. And there will also be a direct mail piece that will go out as well.
Okay.
Sorry, Johnny and I are kind of hogging this a little bit, but we've been dealing with this a long time. So, and also the perception was on RDOF that, say it's your company that has the rights to RDOF grant. If you don't find it economically feasible, you can just pack your bags and leave after 6 years and leave them unserved again. Once again, perception. Is there any truth to that?
We
So
cannot
I'm
do
getting
that.
crystal clarity on
Yeah,
it.
no, we are 100% committed to these areas.
Okay.
If we were to go back now, the financial penalties are severe with the FCC. There's essentially no going back for us at this point. We've committed to these areas.
Okay.
Can another company go in your RDOF area and provide service?
Absolutely. Nothing is stopping private investment from going in there. It's just through the state programs to avoid duplicative funding that they can't get subsidies to go in there. They can build privately at any time. There's no hold on that area. Anyone can build into there if they want to. Yes, sir. That's a common misconception that just because RDOF has been awarded that no one can actually build physical plant into those areas. That's just not true.
But the federal government gave, and I'm not picking on Charter Spectrum, the federal government gave you a lot of money to make sure that these people had service, correct? Through RDOF.
Yes, sir.
I'm just trying to make sure we get South Mountains and Jones Ridge, they've suffered a lot, you know, because of the topography. That's all I've heard for 10 years is the topography of Burke County. I just want to make sure that we're able to find an ISP that will, you know, service these people in these two areas because they deserve it.
Yes, sir.
Probably more than anybody does.
If it makes you feel any better, we've doubled down on Jonas Ridge because we've got a great grant up there now. So we both have a commitment to the federal government and the state of North Carolina. So I hope that shows we are committed to building that area up there. Yes, sir. Jonas Ridge is one of the 3 priorities that we're looking at. We've got kind of the whole southeast area. I know the county has kind of broken them down into smaller pockets at this point, and then the Brindletown. But what's most notable about all of these projects is the reason why we believe we're in the best position is their proximity to our existing network and the RDOF that we're completing next year. And that's why all of these locations that we have identified here, based on the ARPA funding the county has available for the program and the structure of the matching funds required, we are confident that we can actually go after all of these locations through a partnership with the county to maximize the funds. Again, we're able to do it in an efficient manner based on the proximity of our existing network and the RDOF that we're currently building. So to talk through about our services, we have our standard 300 meg package, our 500 meg package, and a gig package. I know affordability, again, is a big thing. Spectrum has had what we call our Spectrum Internet Assist package. We've had it for at least 10 years, I believe, which provides to low-income homes, folks that are on SSI, free or reduced lunch. Anyone that's eligible for those programs are eligible for our affordable package, which right now is 100 meg, and it's for under $20 a month. As Mr. Brewer mentioned, the ACP program, which is unfortunately likely going to be sunsetting here later in April. We are a participant in the ACP program too, so right now folks that are using that $30 credit are getting that package for free. But of course, as ACP does sunset, we will continue our Spectrum Internet Assist program that we've had in place for years. It's important for us to always have something that's affordable. And I'll talk through the pricing of those three packages in a second, but of course I want to talk about, we do have our video service. We just launched a new joint venture project with Comcast where we have a box that's called Zumo, which will carry our standard video package, but you can then add in all of your other streaming packages, your Netflixes, your Hulus. It combines them all into one. We'll of course have our standard home phone, and as I talked about earlier, we have the fastest growing mobile service in the country, and I'll talk about some great bundling deals we do with that. So here are the promotional prices for those three packages. $49.99 will get you, for a month, will get you our 300 meg. That's our flagship service. You can get 2 mobile lines through our Spectrum mobile service in that same price as well. So bundling this, obviously, if you have our internet service and you have our mobile phones, the Wi-Fi on your mobile phone will offload most of the data onto our network, causing less dependency on cellular data. So we're able to bundle those packages. Our 500 meg is $69.99 a month, and then our gig package is $79.99 a month. And I'd like to open it for questions. If you need me to go back to a particular slide, happy to do that too.
Any questions?
Mr. President, no more questions for me.
I was just sitting here wondering why I'm paying you $359 a month when I look up there at that screen.
Well,
And I do bundle.
yes, sir. Well,
You get a lot of video, John.
I guess.
So you got a lot of bandwidth over there.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
thank you all.
Appreciate all of you guys sharing your plans with us this morning. I'll ask our county manager to kind of wrap things up here and tell us where we head from here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I echo your sentiments to our three partners here. We have a broadband committee here with the county professional staff, myself, and some of our folks from mapping, GIS, and IT, and we've been meeting regularly. And all three of these folks have been a huge part of getting this to where we are. I do think it's an exciting time. I put a map over to our right here that we found dugouts from, I think, 1996. Is that right, Margaret? Where broadband expansion was being talked about in 1996 in Burke County. So it's been a conversation for a long time. It's been a priority of this board for a long time. And I think that we're finally to the intersection where we're able to make some meaningful difference. Again, I would remind you, and I know we talked about it at the beginning, I think as we move through the CAP program, certainly the policy goal of 90% is within arm's length. As we stand here today, only about 1,294 rooftops or broadband serviceable locations in the entire Burke County, parameters of Burke County, don't have a funded, planned coverage area. And we think that all of those, this concept of universal coverage, 100% of the rooftops is achievable over the next 2 years, with CAP being the first massive step towards that. They're working on pulling up an interactive map that we put together that will hopefully summarize what you've heard from each of the three providers. And Mr. Chairman, what we're looking for is we want to make sure you all see the map, and here's a printed version of what they're trying to pull up. But following that, if
Did
there's
our
any,
internet go down?
Yeah, who provides to this building? That's right. When we get it pulled up, if you have or any board member has specific questions, what we're going to try to show you, we've broken it down into 21 priority areas, and those are areas that are currently underserved or not served and aren't part of RDOF or one of the 2 great grants in Burke County. Again, the total number is 1,294, and what we'll be looking for again is questions to answer that the board may have on those, and then ultimately, if the board is comfortable authorizing us to begin moving forward with CAP.
As we are waiting on that to pull up, let's take a little bit of time for the benefit of people that may be looking and describe. I think all of us are pretty familiar with GREAT. Let's talk about CAB a little bit, the process, and how monies are interconnected between the county and the state. Could you do that?
Yeah, sure. So,
Please.
this continuing access to broadband is the next grant process administered through the state, through the Department of Information Technology, specifically the Office of Broadband. A gentleman by the name of Jeff Brooks is over the program there at the state level, and essentially it requires it's the first process that has allowed for really an interactive dialogue between the local leadership and the state and the ISPs. And you have to, this is the first time to this point, again, $6.2 million of grants have ran through the Great Grant Program in Burke County with no local dollars involved at all. Served about 1,850 households. There's 1,294 left that we're trying to address through CAB. CAB does require a local match. We have set aside federal dollars through ARPA of about $1 million and another $300,000 of a state grant. What we're able to do through CAB, the state offers roughly a 3-to-1 match. So for every dollar that the county puts in, the state will match that 3-to-1. We have 1.3, so we end up with about a $4 million total capital expansion budget. And essentially what will happen following today, if the board agrees with these areas of priority, we will communicate these priority areas to the state. The state will put together an RFP, a request for proposal. They'll solicit private ISP applications, evaluate cost per passings, and then award. The state will be the awarding agency to the ISP, similar to GREAT and RDOF, but with local input, priorities, and with local contribution of funding, and we'll maximize that $4 million investment to cover as many of these as we can, and we think we can get pretty close to all of them. Is that helpful?
Excellent.
Thanks, sir. Any other questions before I jump into this? All right, so what you're looking at, and I'll draw your attention to the red dots with yellow circles. If you could add up all the red dots, that would be the 1,294 unserved BSLs, broadband serviceable locations, rooftops. The green dots are the awarded great grants, but for this point of discussion, these are the areas that remain to be our area of focus during CAP. So as you're looking at it and getting close to it, this is an interactive map, so if there's an area that you want to see more detail, we can certainly zoom in, we can get to a neighborhood level, we can look at the street view, but I can, in area of quantity, the way we've numbered them is just from north to south. It's not area of priority or quantity of BSLs or anything like that. It's just a way to identify those areas. I would point out, I believe Jonas Ridge is the highest area of count with 340-ish thereabouts. Followed by, I think that Brindletown area is the next highest unserved or underserved, 370. So again, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted the board to be able to see this, understand these are the priority areas that the Broadband Committee has developed in communication with our ISPs and with the information we've got through the FCC and the State Department of our Office of Broadband. And we are confident that we can address most all of these through CAB if the board endorses this and authorizes us to move forward.
All right, thank you, Brian. Gentlemen, we've heard a lot of information this morning, and I think I can say from a utility perspective that these 1,294 locations will be and are the most difficult locations to serve. You might think of those as what we often refer to in my world as the onesies and twosies. They're out there, they're all alone. Costs a lot more to serve that one person that's, you don't necessarily pass by 10 more to get there. So those are the most difficult locations. I appreciate the work that Brian and our professional team have done to bring this map together. It gives us some good information to send to the folks at Raleigh that'll be administering this program to give them some areas to work with. So if there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion that we accept this report, and also is it advisable that we accept this map as what we're going to send to folks at CAB?
Yes, sir. I think that's wise.
Okay.
Before we go there, Mr. Chairman, a few things I'd like to say. I think we have spent an enormous amount of time on broadband over the years. I think Madam President from the NCACC for her initiative last year, her presidential initiative to ensure that broadband is pushed out into areas. I actually spoke with her yesterday on the telephone and was telling her what we were doing in Burke County. She was quite jealous because she's from Washington County, so she doesn't have anything. Unfortunately, it's her presidential initiative, and she almost cried yesterday when I told her all the great things that were happening here in Burke County and what we were looking at to get done. As far as NCDIT, I just want to do a personal thank you to Nate Denny and Marissa Angie, and especially Jeff Brooks. He spent a lot of time here in Burke County with us talking about broadband. I actually sat at Timberwoods Restaurant with him, and he used up 23 napkins drawing out on an ink pen. I still have those 23 napkins and all the acronyms that go along with everything that's been presented to us today. Gentlemen, I don't think we're in a better position than we've ever been in to make a great decision of how we want to move forward in Burke County to ensure that the citizens of this county receive some kind of broadband that is affordable. I think we've heard from all three of our providers, and I want to thank all three of you for being here today to make your presentations. You've answered our questions most professionally, and we do appreciate that. So I just want to make those comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I just want to make sure that we have a very well understood definition of what unserved means. My understanding is that the definition that we're using for the purposes of this report also includes underserved.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So unserved means you have access to nothing. Underserved means it doesn't meet the definition. And in each cycle, he mentioned RDOF was a 25-3. Then Great Grant was a 120. So, but that is a definitional term. Unserved means you have access to nothing. You do not have, the opportunity to acquire. But yet, you're right, sir.
Well, I would just about argue that I have access to nothing about 6 hours a day. Even though I do have some service, I won't say from who.
Other questions, comments? All right, again, I want to thank Scott Black and his team for all the efforts and work that they've done to make this has been incredibly difficult. It's probably not exactly the right word, but I know it's been a lot of work to put all this information together, get it in a form that we can present to our folks in Raleigh to help us get to where we want to be. So I thank you to all you guys for that as well. So,
Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and make that motion, if it's okay, acceptable at this time, that we accept the county manager's report, that we accept this map as our priority areas in Burke County, and that the county manager take the necessary steps to move forward with the state of North Carolina NCDIT for whatever happens from there.
all right, thank you, Mr. Carswell. All those in favor signify by the uplifted hand. And that is 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Manager. At this point, gentlemen, we've heard all the information, and are there any other discussions along these lines that you'd like to have before we finish our meeting? I think the discussion has been robust, and we've had lots of questions answered. And again, want to thank all of these guys for being with us this morning, updating us on where you are and what your plans are. And we look forward to continuing to work together with each of you to meet the needs of our folks here in Burke County. Any question, comment from anybody? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, sir. All those in favor signify by the uplift of the hand. 5-0. Thank you very much. Again, thank you all for being here this morning.